welcome back to Book March Madness. My name is Lee and I will be your ref for this competition. We are halfway through Book March Madness. It is the Sweet 16 competition, and when I tell you that the second round of voting was tumultuous, so much happened. So many titles were displaced. There was a lot of really close races between titles. We did have an overtime, and it was just a lot happened in the second round of voting. So just like with the second round video, I'm going to go through each genre and talk to you about the close calls, the comfortable wins, and as well as the upsets. And then at the end, I will tell you, once all the bracket is reorganized for the Sweet 16, I will tell you about which books got the most votes, and they're the titles to watch for the upcoming competitions. So let's get started with the classics bracket. Now, the only close call in the classics bracket is technically also an upset. It almost went into overtime, but by one vote, The Help by Catherine Stockett beat The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, and I was so surprised. They were neck and neck for so long, and then The Help towards the end pulled ahead by one vote, just as I was about to put it into overtime. Yeah, and that's where it stayed the entire time of the rest of the competition, and it surprised me so much because The Book Thief had such a huge amount of votes going into the second round, and it had the most votes out of all of these books in the classics bracket. But unfortunately, The Book Thief, the one that I was watching very closely for the classics bracket, is out of the competition. We had two comfortable wins in the classics bracket, starting at the bottom and working our way up. Unfortunately, I know there were a lot of people who were rooting for the Bachman, but Where the Crawdads Sing beat A Man Called Uva by a pretty comfortable margin, unfortunately. And the next comfortable win, which with probably the widest margin of votes, Little Women absolutely crushed The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. So unfortunately, The Catcher in the Rye, which I think was one of the more quintessential classic titles, is now out of the competition because people just really love Little Women. We did have one pretty large upset, and that was between The Great Gatsby and Animal Farm. The Great Gatsby, by a huge margin, again, beat The Animal Farm. So one of our George Orwell titles is out of the competition so far. On to the mystery thriller bracket, we actually didn't really have any close calls within 1 point. Most of them were pretty close margins, but for the most part, one title was particularly ahead of the other. So we're going to skip the close calls for the mystery thriller bracket, and we're going to talk about the comfortable wins first. We have two titles that were ranked higher than their counterparts and won handily, and that would be, the first one is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole beat Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, which I was surprised because Riley Sager is a much sought after author at the moment, but When No One Is Watching took it over Riley Sager. And the next comfortable win was between Tana French in the Woods and Dennis Lehane's Shutter Island. And even though there were a lot of Shutter Island movie fans that voted for Shutter Island, In the Woods took it by quite a few votes. So the wonderful thriller Shutter Island is now out of the competition, and Tana French's In the Woods is moving on. Now we did have two upsets in the mystery thriller bracket. Both of them were a little surprising because they are, I think, either very popular or much loved. And the first one is that Ruth Ware's Turn of the Key beat The Guest List by Lucy Foley by quite a few votes. That was one of the ones I was watching because Ruth Ware is a much loved mystery thriller author, but Lucy Foley's was so popular and did so well on Goodreads, but it is unfortunately out of the competition. And in probably what I would consider to be the biggest upset in this bracket, if not the entire competition, but The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins crushed, and then there were none, which was very surprising to me. I expected Agatha Christie to go all the way to the final four, or excuse me, the Elite Eight, and that didn't happen. And so Miss Agatha Christie, who I think is the queen of mystery thriller writing, is out of the competition. For the romance bracket, we did have an overtime. It was the only overtime of the second round, and that was between Red, White, and Royal Blue and the Unhoneymooners. That was probably the closest call we had in this entire bracket. They were neck and neck for so long, and when we instituted the overtime, they were still tied for a long time. But then eventually, by a few votes, the Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren pulled ahead of Red, White, and Royal Blue. So the Casey McQuiston title, that is much beloved by a lot of people, is now out of the competition. We only had one comfortable win in the romance bracket, and The Princess Bride, again, surprisingly, I expected this to be a closer race, pretty much stomped all over Sense and Sensibility, which was disappointing. Sense and Sensibility is my favorite Jane Austen title, but I also really love The Princess Bride. So that one was a really hard, personally, really hard choice for me to make. Even though I didn't vote, in my mind, I didn't know which one I was going to pick. But The Princess Bride did pull ahead by quite a wide margin, and so one Jane Austen title is now officially out of the competition. We did have two upsets. One was a matchup that, because I haven't read either title, I didn't really know which I would pick if I was voting. But In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle did displace Regretting You by Colleen Hoover by quite a few votes. This one I think probably sounded the most interesting to me over Regretting You. So that would probably be how my decision would be influenced, is based on plot. But Regretting You is now out of the competition. And the other upset, which was not a surprise to me, but I did not expect the margin to be this wide between votes, but Pride and Prejudice did beat Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And again, this beautiful cover is unfortunately out of the competition. We did have a close call in the fantasy sci-fi bracket, and that was between Crescent City and The Starless Sea. Crescent City eventually did pull ahead by 1 or 2 votes, but for a while they were neck and neck, which is kind of what I expected because so many people really wanted The Starless Sea in the second round. But unfortunately, the Erin Morgenstern title is out of the competition, and Sarah J. Maas moves on. In this particular genre, we did not have any upsets. They are all comfortable wins, much to my broken heart, because The Fellowship of the Ring did beat Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by a pretty wide margin. So unfortunately now both C.S. Lewis titles are out of the competition, and Tolkien is moving on. I wonder, because Lewis and Tolkien were friends in real life, how they would have felt about that particular matchup. And in another surprise, because I did not anticipate this particular title being as popular as it seems to be, 1984 did beat Dune by Frank Herbert, which I just found out the other day that this is being made into a movie. I'll have to do some more research on that because I think this would be a really interesting movie. But 1984, the George Orwell classic, is moving on in the competition, and Dune is now going in our out-of-tournament space. And the last comfortable win was between Ninth House and Recursion. Recursion, unfortunately, did not do as well as it did in the last round, and Ninth House took it pretty handily. So the Leigh Bardugo title moves on, and Recursion is out of the competition. So that is it. Those are all the results of the voting for the second round. Some decisions I was comfortable with, others I was very surprised by, particularly that Book Thief one. Did not see that coming. But now I'm going to take a quick minute and reorganize my bracket, and we will look at what the roster is for the Sweet 16 competition, as well as the titles to watch for upcoming voting. Okay, everyone, so our bracket has now been reorganized to reflect the titles that will be in the Sweet 16 competition. We're going to start with the Classics bracket. The title to watch that has the most amount of votes in the Classics bracket cumulatively is, of course, Little Women. And I think probably the matchup that I am watching most closely is Little Women and The Great Gatsby, because this is the culmination of the Champion Classics, which is the bracket that I am most invested in because I've read the most in the Classics genre. So I'm really watching this particular competition. I will be interested to see whether Where the Crawdads Sing that unseated the Bachman and The Help, which unseated the Book Thief, how those will do together, but my eye is mostly on that matchup right there. For the mystery thriller bracket, the title that had the most votes cumulatively was Girl on the Train, but I think probably the matchup that I'm watching most closely in the mystery thriller is the Ruth Ware and Alyssa Cole. If I was voting, I would 100% go with Ruth Ware, because I was not a huge fan of the ending of When No One Is Watching, but these are very current, popular current releases, and so I'd be curious to see the results of that. And in the romance bracket, obviously, the title that had the most cumulative amount of votes was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This is the one I think I'm most interested to see the results of, whether The Princess Bride, that has pretty well obliterated 2 huge romance titles, and was the wild card participant voted in title, will be able to beat Jane Austen. I think that's going to be a painful one for a lot of people. And then on the Honeymooners Within 5 Years, I'm not hugely opinionated one way or the other, but I will be curious to see what happens. And then in the fantasy sci-fi, the title that had the most votes cumulatively was, weirdly, I did not expect this to happen, but 1984 by George Orwell, and it is going up against LOTR. I will be curious to see how that one plays out, but I think the one that I'm watching most closely is the Sarah J. Maas Crescent City and the Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I love Leigh Bardugo. I think she's a fabulous writer. The Six of Crows series is incredible. I'm really excited for the TV show coming out in April. But Sarah J. Maas is such a huge impetus of a title, and I think, or an author, excuse me, and I think she will carry it. If I was gonna make a prediction, I probably would say that Crescent City would beat it, but I want to know how close this is gonna be. I think now, for me, it's gonna be safe to say that I can predict who the final four are going to be. That's a big prediction, but I think that it will be, to represent each genre, that it will be Little Women, Turn of the Key. This one's hard. I'm gonna say Pride and Prejudice, even though it hurts my heart. And then I think I'm gonna go with Crescent City. So Little Women, Turn of the Key, Pride and Prejudice, and Crescent City. That's my prediction for the final four. I am saying that knowing fully well that I could be wrong, because I think all of these are going to be spectacularly close, and it would not surprise me if we have multiple overtimes. The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about are the parameters for the giveaway for the person who correctly predicts the winner of Book March Madness. So starting on April 8th, which is the championship voting round, between the two titles that will be up for the champion spot, you will have 48 hours, that same 48-hour voting period, to submit either in the comments below or on Instagram at Leolin's Library. Send me your predictions as to who you think will win. If you predict correctly, your name will go into a random drawing and will be picked randomly. And then on April 10th, when the champion of Book March Madness is announced, the person who also won the giveaway will also be announced. Now, if you want full details as to what's involved in the giveaway, you can go head over. There'll be a post on Leolin's Library about what's in what you will win in the giveaway, but I can say that it will be a laminated certificate saying you are the winner of Book March Madness, as well as, if you have an Amazon book wish list, a title of your choice, as well as a copy of the winning book, or if you don't have an Amazon book wish list, just let me know a title you would like to read, and that will be sent to you personally, as well as a few little treats included. So we'll do more of that information the closer we get to the giveaway, but those are the parameters for the giveaway, because I want to be interactive. It will be fun. So if you have any thoughts or concerns or questions about any of these titles that have been matched up, if you want to gripe at me and complain to me about the fact that your favorite title is no longer in the competition, please comment down below. I want to know your thoughts. But that's it for our Sweet 16. Voting begins now. So head downstairs. There will be one link to a voting round, and just a reminder that it is required to pick a title for the Sweet 16 competition. But all links to voting and more information regarding Book March Madness will be down below in the description. I think that's it. So if you enjoyed this video and you're excited to see what happens in Book March Madness, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. That really does help me out and let me know what you guys want to see. As always, a huge thank you to the friends and family who have readily supported me on this journey. It truly means the world to me, and I can't wait to see what's on the next page. So until we have the Elite 8, we'll see you later.